Hello, everyone. Welcome to our listeners, both on podcasts and our viewers, both on YouTube and our website page and Instagram, wherever you're watching. Welcome to another episode of the Canadian Worker Co-op Federation's Equity Denied Group Social Media Spotlight. So if you don't know what this series is a series that seeks to highlight the actions of members of equity denied groups, so women, BIPOC, youth, people with disabilities, etc., as it pertains to the social enterprise, the social impact, social finance space. So today we're really excited to have Kat from the Makehouse Co-operative here. And I think we'll have her introduce herself briefly. I'll introduce myself, and then I'll also introduce her JEDDI intern.
Sure. So my name is Catherine Canfield, although I go by Kat most of the time. I am the general manager and one of the worker owners of the Makehouse Co-op. And we just took over the business back on December 1st. So our co-op is a bit of a baby. We're still growing, but I'm delighted to be here today.
Thanks, Kat. We're really excited to have you on our website. We definitely featured your cooperative, and I think on one of our pages, the JEDDI pages, and it seemed like a really exciting endeavor, something that's very like such a creative space all needed. So I'm excited to explore that today. For listeners and viewers, for those of you who don't know, my name is Janielle Maxwell, and I'm the project coordinator for CWCF's Justice, Equity, Diversity, Decolonization, and Inclusion Business Conversion Project. And the whole premise of the project sits on the notion that there's really a lack of engagement of members and marginalized groups within the cooperative social enterprise space. So we're really here to highlight their engagement today and to focus on the ways that members of marginalized groups have been interacting with the social impact sector. And we're hoping that maybe you'll think about following suit as well. So Kat, if it's okay with you, I'm going to get into the questions now. Okay. So the first question being, why did you choose to pursue the cooperative model for your organization?
That's an excellent question, and we do get asked that quite a bit. So maybe I'll just give you a little background about the business, and maybe that'll make more sense when we get to the question. So this business was founded 11 years ago by a white woman, Jenny, my previous boss. She really built the business from the ground up, worked super hard. And by the time the 10th year rolled around, she was pretty burnt out. She's like, I don't want the responsibility of a storefront anymore. I'm going to sell the business. And so she told us employees, and we were kind of like, right, who's the new boss going to be? Who's the new owner going to be? What's that going to look like? I had a very short time of like literally 24 hours where I thought, oh, maybe I'll buy the business. And then I was like, I don't want to run this show on my own. Absolutely not. And I had some exposure to co-ops before because I did work for a consumer co-op, Karma Co-op, which is a health food store in Toronto. And I'd always dreamed of having a worker co-op, but I was thinking more health food store. So I kind of ended up working here through another long story I'll skip. And so, yeah, it was in the days after Jenny announced that she was selling the business that I really started to think about the worker co-op model, and could, a group of us buy the business together, run it democratically, set the terms of our work, create really great sustainable jobs for ourselves. So I started talking to my coworkers, and Jenny helped introduce a couple other people she thought might want to be involved. And actually, it was when we finally found out, I think, that we were accepted in to the CWCF education program. When they confirmed that, we were like, right, we can do it. Okay, we've got 3 months. It's really short, but we can do it. And so that's when we decided to go for it. So that was, I think, about September of last year.
Oh, so that's quite a new co-op. Congratulations on,
Thank you.
it working out. That's a big deal. And you only had 3 months, but you guys made it happen. So
Yeah.
I sense that oh yeah, you're welcome. And I sense that maybe amongst employees and individuals that attended or frequented the business when it was proposed, when a closure was proposed, I guess there was kind of like, a realization that there's a need for this business and you guys wanted to keep it up and running, right?
Yeah, I don't think there was a question of it being closed, but it was like, who's going to buy the business? Because it was a really
Okay.
viable, like awesome business that was, I think, filling a niche in the sewing world in terms of, especially the sewing instruction world. But it
Mm.
was that question of who's the next boss going to be, and what is that going to look like working for that person, and will they actually do it as an investment or because they actually care about the community and care about the business. So it's like, let's take that risk out of there and like, let's just do it ourselves, you know?
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see the ways that, employees can get together and decide to run their own business, like, especially having like a history and emotional connection, community connection with the business. And I also do want to introduce our JEDDI intern who started with us through the Create Action program. Their name is Aniqah, based in Scarborough, Ontario, and they've been doing some really great work with us, sort of like research based, organizing spreadsheets, and sort of helping us to just like move forward the project in whichever way that we can. And so they've been really awesome. And I just wanted to take the time to introduce you all to Aniqah today. And so now we'll be moving on to question number 2. So, Kat, what has pursuing the cooperative model allowed you to achieve that would have perhaps been more difficult with a more mainstream traditional business model?
Well, definitely if a sole proprietor had been taking over the business, I can't even imagine the quantity of work they would have had to do all themselves, right? Like we have 5 worker owners. And so being able to separate out chunks of work, delegate who's going to take on what piece, especially in the development phase and our early days, was invaluable and still is invaluable, to be honest. Like we make all our decisions collectively, and it's great to have those extra sets of eyes, or just extra brains to kind of process proposals, directions we're going in, funding options, employee structure, payroll, all those things, and not for a single person to be having to make all those decisions. It's also allowed employees to raise their concerns and have them addressed in terms of well-being in the workplace. So I don't know if you saw, but we got a huge amount of media following this week because I put a post up on our Instagram that said, hey, we closed for half an hour for lunch, and this is why. Because we've had a little bit of pushback from some customers, but I really wanted to explain the rationale, and like it's really because our stated goal of this co-op is to provide emotion, like what we call like emotionally well-being and financially sustainable jobs in the sewing industry. That's our goal, and we do that by providing classes, and we do that by selling fabric. But our number 1 commitment is to the employees. So having a half-hour break where we literally do shut the doors, we close the curtains, we turn off the music, we have a little quiet, protected space that honestly ends up usually being 20 minutes a day because it takes a bit of time to wrap up and a bit of time to get going again. But that kind of prioritization of the workers' needs and to prevent burnout that way, I don't know if it would have happened in a regular business. Yeah, so that's a big one, but it's like responding to people's needs and where they're at. There's been a lot of major life events amongst our members this year. There's been parents who've died. There have been parents who developed terminal diseases. We have members with chronic health issues. So being able to respond to that in a really compassionate way is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's great what you shared. I think it's such a very like refreshing perspective to hear. Sometimes in traditional sectors there is really sort of like a lack of compassion, more so the general undertone. Excuse me. The general undertone of things is more, go, 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 get back to work, even, regarding deaths and significant life changes. And so that's something that I've seen that's very different in the cooperative sector, even just in working online and in, a couple meetings here and there in person. I've seen and definitely felt that difference, and it's very valuable. And in the sense of just having that 30 minutes for the employees, I heard one of our BIPOC advisors to the CWCF board say, rest is radical, and it really is resisting capitalism, like resisting all of these colonial structures. And so I think it's really amazing that not only did you designate that time, but as well you posted about it and said, hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And yeah, I can see how that would definitely garner, a larger following as well, especially as a lot of youth were kind of looking to more non-traditional work models. and models that respect our humanity. So that's great. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, it got picked up that by CBC Victoria, so the morning radio show. Did an interview with my coworker, and then that was broadcast at like 7:30 in the morning, and then at like 5 to 10 the same day, we got a call from our local Czech news, and they were like, "We want to do a feature on your closure." But the response is, and exactly like what you said, like, why is this so radical? Like, we take half an hour. We're not talking an hour and a half. We're not talking like we split our day into 2 shifts. It's like literally 30 minutes we close. So it might be inconvenient for some customers, and I totally get that. But we even took that half hour and put it on the end of our day. So we're now open till 5:30. So there's like even an opportunity maybe for some people who couldn't shop after work to come after work, right? So it's literally this half hour that makes an enormous difference to our well-being. And it's a slight inconvenience to our customer base. And most people totally get it, right? And we try to post it everywhere we can. It's on our voicemail, our door, our Instagram, our website, like it's everywhere. And that little inconvenience for those few customers and their frustration, I totally understand. But the benefit to us, so that we can then provide better service to them, it's like you can't put a dollar sign on that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's literally unmatched. And even the fact you mentioned like 30 minutes kind of turns into like 20 minutes, but you're still extending your workday by that half an hour. And it just shows like your commitment to the client base and to, worker well-being as well. And so I think that's a great endeavor. Thank you. The last question is, what is your organization's social purpose and why? You can take a more social stance, a more environmental perspective, cultural, whatever you feel best encompasses your business.
Well, it really comes down to, again, like our purpose of providing these sustainable jobs to people. Like, we really understand about what the economy is doing to people, right? What capitalism does to people, squeezing labor out of people. We understand that minimum wages aren't keeping up with the real true cost of living. We understand the pressures people have, especially here in BC, I think in Ontario as well. There's a terrible shortage of healthcare, like accessing a doctor or a GP a nurse practitioner is really hard. So we see all these pressures, rents are going up, cost is going up, all these stresses. So if we can be a tiny little microcosm of a safer, more nourishing, like that's a radical concept to me. Like, your job doesn't have to be draining, it could actually nourish you. That's super important to us. And that's, like I said, it's in the face of capitalism, which tries to exploit people, right, for the least amount of money they can get out of it. And then we do have a real environmental aspect, sustainability aspect to our business as well. We have very, very low waste here. Scraps that get created during our classes end up usually getting used as stuffing for kids' projects, like for stuffed animals and stuff. We try wherever we can to stock more sustainable options. So like, we're a bit choosy about the textiles we carry, more organic, natural fibers, that kind of thing, as opposed to polyester. It also means that garments people make will last longer, so they won't need to replace them as much. We also try to focus on Canadian first when we can, not because of like, Canada's so good, but more just because we want to support the economy, but also we're like aware of shipping costs, I mean, financially, but also in terms of the impact on the environment. So those are really important to us. We have also made some inroads in trying to be a really queer positive space. We have a queer social that we run now, which is like for queer folks to get together and do garment making in a super comfortable environment. So all those values, we try to like all incorporate them. I have to say, like, we definitely need to make some more inroads because our customer base and our staff is like very, very heavy on white settler folks. So we would like to make more bridges to First Nations communities, and that's something that our previous owner did. She did some really cool programs with First Nations communities and setting up sewing programs locally for some First Nations communities. So that's something we'd like to do, and then just like have more racialized folks in the store and in our classes as well. And so we have work to do. It's not like we're perfect, but yeah, it's what kind of those values do drive our business.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that it's a little bit of everything, like, like your primary sort of like mandate is to provide like, a space and education as well as livable sort of like wages, right? For like employees. And then there's the queer aspect as well, a welcoming safe space for the queer community. And then there's the environmental aspect, which you guys like, I'm really happy to hear there's so many considerations that were made there, even in terms of shipping. And yeah, I think when people sometimes hear like, oh, like locally sourced or like Canadian sourced, they may think it's not necessarily about, our country being the greatest. It's more so about, like you said, like shipping cost and the contributions to the environment, and even like, just supporting local organizations and businesses as well, and creating like that ecosystem, especially with like-minded organizations. So it's all very valuable. And I see that there's a definite need for that. We recently learned about like a similar sort of like craft business, the more so gearing towards setting up as a social purpose, social enterprise in the Mississauga region here in Ontario. And so it's nice to see that as well, because there's such a lack for just a space for creatives to come together and just be creative. I think they focus like your business on sewing and crochet as well. So it's interesting to hear. And I recently myself got into crochet, and I'm excited about, a few projects and learning to sew and stuff like that. So it's nice to kind of like see that space on the rise, across Canada and in Ontario as well.
Yeah, totally. I just, sorry, just what you said was also reminding me the other thing that's really fun. So in my previous life, or one of my previous lives, I put that in quotes, when I lived in Toronto, I was a social worker, and I worked with the deaf and hard of hearing communities. And I'm really excited because a deaf customer came in recently. I was like, I want to take sewing classes. And I was like, well, if you're patient, my ASL is a little rusty and I don't know sewing terminology in ASL, but like if you're patient with me, we could do some classes together. And then she was suggesting, yeah, in the future, if she wanted to join a group class, we could reach out to deaf service organization here to see if there's other folks who want to come, which is totally my dream. Like I would love to like connect my sort of past, like working with the deaf community, which I find I find the deaf community amazing, inspiring, and I love languages. So getting to use another language is super fun. Yeah, and if we can accommodate anybody else with other disabilities, we're like totally into that. We have sewing machines that don't have to be foot pedal operated, they're just hand operated. So that's definitely another area of interest that I would like to expand our offerings to folks with disabilities and deaf folks. So that's out there too.
Amazing. Yeah, no, it sounds really great. So I think like your general overarching umbrella is, providing livable wages and, focusing on fabric and sewing, but also there's a lot of those subsets of like important considerations for your business. And I think it aligns so well with the cooperative mission. Sometimes, not so much in smaller organizations, but in larger cooperatives, it's sometimes easy to lose sight of, what makes the organization a cooperative and how to live out those values in daily operations. But I'm just really glad to hear about your the Makehouse co-op, and even I've read about it, online on your website, but hearing it firsthand from you and just seeing your passion is really amazing. It's very touching. So I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. It was so amazing, Kat, what you shared about what you're thinking of doing with the honorarium for this interview.
Yeah, well, I first of all, thank you so much for you guys for offering me an honorarium, because honestly, I would have done this for free, no problem. So I appreciate that, but like, I'm like, I don't want to just put it on our general co-op revenue. So just in the conversation, thinking about future projects, I think what I'll do is I'll take the money and I'll put it aside towards an interpreter for your future class. So more deaf folks can come out to classes. So I think that's what I'm gonna do.
That's amazing. Look at that, putting I guess profit or money right back into your mission and impact on people, impact on community. I think I'm just going to wrap things up now. So I wanted to thank you so much, Catherine, for being here today. Thank you so much, Aniqah, for sitting in on this interview. And just so viewers know, their audio isn't working, and that's why I introduced them earlier in the interview. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys were inspired by listening. Please do stay in contact if you yourself have a business that you're considering converting to a cooperative or a social purpose organization, or if you know of someone, please do stay in touch. The email is JEDDI-SA@canadianworker.coop. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.